Aloha, scooter heads, and welcome to another episode of the Electric Scooter Podcast, which is brought to you 100% free of charge and without advertising, except for the little jingles that I do now and then advertising for this very podcast, which is kind of odd because you're already listening, right? I only do it because it's fun. I will also mention from time to time other scooter heads on YouTube, on the internet, other podcasts if I come across them, in the hopes that you will support them. In this podcast, we're going to get back to part 2 of Ed, the adventure-seeking adrenaline junkie, off-roader, pilot, RVer, motorcyclist, camper. I could just go on and on. He basically does it all. He does the sand rails, up and down the giant dunes, and I had occasion to do that one time when he was out there, and it was a load of fun. It's a little dangerous, I gotta say, because you're flying over these dunes. You don't know what's on the other side. Somebody could be flying up the other side, and people perish out there. I would say it's fairly common. Well, how's that for a little rabbit hole there? We're just getting started, and I'm jumping into rabbit holes already. The plan for today is to give you a little bit of news and then get into the interview with Ed the pilot, of which I must mention there was a huge monkey wrench near the end. You'll hear it, but I'll just, spoiler alert, I did the calculations for what TSA says are allowed on their website. And by allowed, I mean what size lithium batteries can be brought on board. Remember, the rule was 100 amp hours. Actually, it said 100 to 160 amp hours. So I looked up the calculation, and, oh, geez, it's watt hours, which is what they normally give you. For example, the Levy scooter is 6.4. The Levy, Levy, being a scooter that has the lowest amp hours at 6.4 that I could find with a removable battery, the most likely to be able to be brought on board an airplane that requires you to meet TSA requirements. Now, Ed, when he's flying, he can put whatever he wants on board. But he's got to get home somehow, right, after he delivers an airplane. So he's going to have to put it on another airplane to get home, unless somebody's got a better idea. He's not going to Uber, for example, from Wisconsin back to Las Vegas. So the calculation for watt hours, when you're starting with amp hours, is you take the amp hours times the voltage, which would be 110 or 120, depending on where you live, might be 220. So the Levy scooter has 6.4 amp hours. The battery has 6.4 amp hours. You times that by 110, you come up with 704 watt hours. And TSA says they allow 100 to 160. I don't know why they even specify that. Why don't they just say up to 160? Now, remember, airlines can modify that. They can make it more restrictful, or they can allow something above what the TSA recommends. But TSA just puts out recommendations. So with those calculations, even the Levy battery at 6.4 amp hours is going to give you 704 watt hours. My conclusion is that TSA is saying basically if you want to bring one of those little teeny chargers that you can use to charge your phone or your laptop, that's okay. But they do not want, or they don't recommend, anything very large at all that could power an electric scooter. Bad host. Bad host. Why start off something that's supposed to be fun, well, and informative, with a bunch of math? Who's into that? But I just want you to be informed. It seems to me Like, there is not a way to bring an electric scooter onto a commercial airliner. However, as I've mentioned in previous podcasts, I talked to a spokesman for United Airlines, and he said he is the guy who decides what to go on and off, what will be allowed on board the aircraft. And he said he personally totally would allow it because he said, look at people in mobility scooters, people who are disabled, otherly abled. What's the word? I don't know. People who are in wheelchairs. He said there's no electric scooter that's going to have a lithium battery as massive as one of those. I don't know what he knows, and I don't know if that's true. I would think there are some scooters definitely that have larger batteries, but I don't know. So he said he personally would allow it. So here's what I would take from that. If you're taking maybe one airline straight through to where you're going, let's say it's United. This guy was from United. And you call ahead of time, let them know, and arrange it. Especially if you don't have any stops. So the scooter I found that has a detachable battery and the lowest amp hours is the Levy. But as we're going to hear in the news, there are other alternatives. If you're not going to fly or you just want something with a detachable battery.
Electric podcast scooter news. Dagwood here to bring to you. Electric podcast scooter news. Dagwood here to bring to you.
Isn't it convenient when the news happens to tie in with not only the interview, but also there's a special offer from the Electric Scooter Guide. The scooters we looked at were the Apollo Air Pro, Highboy S2, Unagi, U-Scooter, Booster, Fluid Freeride, Mosquito, TurboAnt, Innocam, Fluid Freeride, Horizon, AnyHill, UM2, Emove Touring, and Emove Cruiser. Now, if you're going to narrow those down to which ones have detachable batteries, you're left with the TurboAnt X7 Pro, which we looked at briefly, and also the AnyHill UM2. They both, I think, are dynamite scooters, aside from having detachable batteries. Now, the Electric Scooter Guide currently has an offer if you go to their webpage. The $600 TurboAnt X7 Max. Okay, not to be confused with the Pro. The one that they reviewed on their best lightweights was the TurboAnt X7 Pro. The TurboAnt X7 Max, as the name infers, is a slight upgrade. I say slight because it's got a couple different things. You are going to give up 2 pounds. The X7 Pro weighs 32 pounds, and the Max weighs 34 pounds. But you're going to get the great 10-inch tubeless tires, which are amazing. You're going to get a thumb throttle. It's a little bit of an upgrade, okay? The TurboAnt X7 Pro is $500. The TurboAnt Max is $600, but you can get, I think it's $140 off if you go through the Electric Scooter Guide and use their coupon to buy it. I think that's a phenomenal deal. So once again, for clarification, you can get on pre-sale the TurboAnt X7 Max, a $600 scooter for $460. And the price of the TurboAnt Pro is $500. So you're getting the upgraded model for $40 less. That is hard to beat, and it's a good little scooter. It has the high-mounted headlight, which I like. I'm not so sure about the throttle. And there's also upgrades you can get to the LCD, which I think is pretty cool. It also goes a little bit faster, and it has a bit more range. National Basketball Association superstar and future Hall of Famer LeBron James has investments in all kinds of stuff. We have in Las Vegas, this Blaze Pizza, where you walk down a row kind of like Subway and you tell them what to put on your pizza and they cook it right in front of you. I know he's a big investor in that, and also movies and all kinds of stuff, but he is investing over $30 million into a German e-bike company called Canyon. I don't believe at this time they're making scooters, but come on, guys, sprechen Sie Scooter? Scooter heads, if you're not watching Wrong Way from Poland and his scooter reviews, he also does EUCs. He does a lot of other stuff. I started watching him for scooters. There's been a controversy, at least within my head, which brakes are preferable, Nut, N-U-T-T, or Zoom. And I hear both from different people. Usually they say they're pretty comparable, about the same. And I thought I'd put it out there that Wrong Way, who really knows scooters and PEVs, says he prefers nut brakes. N-U-T-T. There you have it, folks.
Electric podcast scooter news. Dagwood here to bring to you. Electric podcast scooter news. Dagwood here to bring to you.
Yeah, man, that last little sizzling hi-hat is what makes the tune, right? That little personal touch. I already gave a spoiler alert earlier that I found out midway through the interview, and it totally makes sense. I should have figured it out, that Ed the pilot needs to somehow get back home after he delivers the airplane, right? So he's going to probably have to follow TSA rules. But being a pilot, you know, maybe he can hook it up, talk to somebody buddy to buddy. Or if it's only one flight from point A to point B, he can call ahead of time, arrange it with the airlines. And remember, you have to detach the battery, put it in your carry-on. In his case, it'd be a backpack. And the frame of the scooter goes into check-in. So, with further ado, because this is a do, right? I don't know what a do is. People like to say, without further ado, literally everybody on YouTube that I see, they give a little introduction. They go, without further ado. I don't think they know what they're saying either. It's just a way to bridge to the next topic. So let's get some more ado in here and head on into the interview. And when we left off last time, we were talking about range. Of all the scooters we looked at, by far the best range was the Emove Cruiser, but it's heavy, 60 pounds. It doesn't have a detachable battery. The range that I listed on here is not the scooter manufacturer's range. This is what people got in the real world.
Yeah.
So you probably are going to get around this type of range.
15 to 30 would be a nice...
15 to 30, so we're looking at the Apollo Air Pro, Fluid Free Ride, the same guys that put out the Horizon, has a new one coming out, not out quite yet, I don't think, called the Mosquito. That is super light. It does have a solid rear tire. You might want to rule that out because of that. But there are advantages to solid tires, too. You're never going to worry about a flat. And if you're pretty much going in a straight line from an airfield to a hotel or something, wet leaves might not be a concern. But you're going to know. There are scooter riders. Ben Fox is one of them. He has a channel. He's from England, and he's one of the pioneers of doing scooter videos. Loves solid tires. And the dude lives in England, so you know he's on wet.
They get a little rain over there.
They get a little bit of rain.
I got a friend of mine that lives in England over there, and he said that last year he was pretty happy. It only rained twice. Yeah.
Per day?
No. Once for 3 months and once for 7 months.
I knew something like that was coming.
Yeah.
So there are scooter riders who like the fact that they never have to worry about a flat tire, because on some of these, And the one that you're looking at very closely, the Emove Cruiser, is one of them. Very difficult to change the flat if it happens. Now, the Emove Cruiser does have tubeless tires, so you're not going to just get a random flat tire. And there are things you can put in. There's types of goo.
Yeah.
One called, what is it, armadillo. There's a couple.
There's all kinds of them out there.
Yeah.
You inject it in there and it seals it up.
And I've heard different things. I've heard it works. I've heard it doesn't work. I've heard different things. I've heard it works better with tires that have tubes than tubeless. I've heard it's a good thing that it helps balance the tire if you put it in correctly and spin it afterwards, that it's actually gives you a more stable and better ride. So you hear different things from different people. I don't know. So you have to weigh the advantages of a pneumatic tire, of which there are many, many advantages to a pneumatic tire. It's going to be safer. It's going to have a better ride. Depending on what kind of suspension you have, you might not even need suspension with a pneumatic tire because it provides a level of comfort. You have a wider contact patch with the ground, so you're safer around corners. It's just a good way to go. But the huge advantage of solid tires is you don't have to worry about maintenance.
Yeah.
With the Emove Cruiser, what people say is you may want to order another tire on the hub already, because separating from the hub and putting the new tire on, it's going to be more expensive. But
well, with you being a scooter guru, I don't understand why you haven't come up with a soft composite type tire that acts like an aired up tire, a pneumatic tire, but yet it's a soft rubber that holds its structure, and it's a solid tire.
Honeycomb, I think, is the answer. I have an off-road skateboard, and it's called a Backfire Ranger, and it has honeycomb tires on it. And I have been asking that question. Why can't we make a larger version of these? Because it works pretty good. It's not slippery. It's not as good as pneumatic, but it's better than other solid tires. A
completely hard solid tire, yeah.
Yeah.
There's got to be a way to come up with something.
There are a couple scooters that do have the honeycomb, but I'm not sure if they're made out of nylon or some kind of composite. But with solid tires, you have another issue, and that is if you ever have to slam on the brakes, you then have a flat spot forever until you change that tire. You're going to listen to wapata, wapata, wapata every time you go. So you don't want to do skids like you've seen me do on the... I enjoy skidding out, and you've seen on some of my videos in the desert too. I'll get going and you do a rooster tail on the rear end just because it's fun.
Well,
you're not going to do that with a solid tire.
No. Have you seen in the dirt biking world, have you seen where they're starting to put balls inside of the rim, inside the tire now, instead of an inner tube? They're stuffing the inside of the tire with tennis balls or other kinds of balls, and it holds the form of the tire, and you don't have to worry about air, and you don't have to worry about punctures.
Huh. Well, the electric bike, I went to a bicycle store, and they gave me an alternative. It's, those fanoodles that people have in swimming pools?
Yeah.
It looks just like that, and instead of an inner tube, that goes in place. And that's what I have on my electric bike.
And they work great.
And they work great. I can't notice a difference. Yeah. So that's another thing that some pioneer scooter magnate out in the world that's listening, hopefully. If you're a powerful scooter magnate and you're not listening to the Electric Scooter Podcast, what are you doing with your life, by the way? Because this is the only, or I could say the most popular and most feared electric scooter podcast on planet Earth. You have no alternative. There may be one in Chinese or Mongolian or Korean or something, but unless you speak those languages, if you speak English,
you're missing out if you're not listening to
you
this.
got to be listening to the Electric Scooter Podcast,
That's right?
You have to. You have no other alternative. The Electric Scooter Podcast. It's what you listen to when you're not spiraling down internet rabbit holes. Let me do that for you. Internet rabbit holes. All right, we're back with Ed the Pilot. We talked about priorities. Weight wasn't a huge priority. Range was a larger priority. Tires, we narrowed it down to we want pneumatic, at least 10-inch. Price is not really an issue, and nor should it be, I think. You know, I understand that there are people buying for their nephews or their children, and they don't want something expensive. But if you're a grown adult and you're like me, I have this crazy relationship with my motorcycles, with my surfboards. With, it's a thing. It's not a horse that has a spirit. And, when it's dead, and things break and whatever. But I do you develop a weird bond with mechanical things like motorcycles and
kind
bicycles?
of a weird thing, yeah. But I don't know. You said something about a grown adult. I don't think we can consider ourselves grown adults.
That's true. Well, certainly not mature.
We're bigger kids. That's all we are.
We're large.
Because we're not grown adults.
We're large children.
I refuse to accept that.
My maturity level, I think I leveled off at about 12.
Yeah, I think so.
Maybe.
Somewhere in there.
Before it gets preteen. Yeah. So the next thing we're going to talk about, since range really was a big priority with you, is swappable batteries or something like the Emove Cruiser. By the way, throughout this podcast, I think we're answering the question almost to which scooter you're going to get, because Emove Cruiser just keeps
popping
coming up.
Yeah.
But I want to point out a couple things about swappable batteries. For me, I travel to a lot of foreign countries, and I would like to keep a battery in different locations so that I can pack the chassis, the body, into a duffel bag on the airplane with no battery, not even worried about what TSA rules are on lithium batteries, and bring it to wherever it is I'm going, and then I have a battery or two at that location. So that's a different type of range. Also with a swappable battery, I don't know if you've considered this. Probably not, because you don't work in an office or go to school, but folks that go to school or work in an office, you can carry the battery with you. Like, you can bring it safely into the building where you work, where it's not going to get stolen. And then maybe you have to go up 2 or 3 flights of stairs. You can just bring the battery with you. Yeah. Or it's not as obvious. You could even put the chassis in the trunk of someone else's car who drove to work or whatever. I always say I'm not a proponent of locking up scooters. I don't think it does any good. I don't think it helps. If someone wants your scooter, they're going to get it. But you can take that swappable battery and put it under your desk. You can the Unagi Model 11 coming out, and I'm not sure about maybe the Apollo Pro, have USB-C charging. So you could even charge from your laptop. Say your laptop's plugged into the wall, or your computer that you're working on at work. If you're not close to
that's pretty good.
A wall, yeah, you could actually charge it by you. It takes longer.
Of course.
Instead of like for the Model 11, instead of 4 hours, it's 8 hours, so it's double the charging time.
Yeah.
So that's the advantage of a swappable battery. But can you think of a couple reasons why just having that long range into your scooter would be useful, as opposed to a swappable battery?
No, not really. So a swappable battery is an option.
It is an option. I will give you a couple because I have thought about it. For one thing, say you get off the airplane and you've got 60 miles of range. Let's even bring it conservatively down to 50, because you're going to get 50 on an Emove Cruiser. People say that in real world that they've gotten up to 60. But let's say it's 50. You go 8 miles to get to your hotel. You don't even bother to charge it, because the next day it's another 8 miles back to where you're going, maybe 3-4 miles around town.
Yeah.
You may even want to sightsee around town. Let's say you go 10 miles. You've only used 26 miles out of 50. So you don't even have to bother to charge it. If you're just, say you're stuck there for a week and you're just tooling around town, you might charge it once for the week. If you're like me, I tend to charge them up after I ride them anyway.
But does that cut down on the life of the battery? Charging, you know how batteries have cycles of charge time. So are you ruining it by charging it, or should you wait until you're pretty much empty and then charge it?
That's a great question. And what I have heard about lithium batteries, again, I'm not a scientist. I'm not an engineer, but I do have access to the internet. I have heard that, for one, it depends on like how cold it is. It depends on the temperature. But I believe lithium batteries, as long as you don't bring them down to zero, like, what is it called? Glass mat type batteries. AGM. You don't want to bring them down to zero, right?
Yeah.
Because that kills the life of the battery. What's more important with lithium batteries, and this is what I've read on the internet, it's actually better if you don't charge them to 100%. It's kind of the reverse. Like bringing it all the way down, it's not that harmful to the battery, but it's probably not good practice to do it. Bring it down to 10% or whatever. But they say don't charge it all the way. However, BMS these days, battery management systems that come with these batteries on these scooters, take care of that for you, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
They've already programmed into the battery the specs of what you should and shouldn't charge, so don't worry about it.
Okay.
That's the bottom line. Since we've talked about all these different scooters like the Apollo Air Pro, Highboy S2, we mentioned the Unagi 1 and the 11 that's coming out. I think we mentioned briefly the Fluid Freeride Mosquito. There's one I want you to look at. I hope you'll look at it. It only gets 16 miles of real world, not factory, but 16 miles. But it only weighs 32 pounds. It does have swappable battery, 10-inch air pneumatic tires, and it is only $500. And that is the TurboAnt X7 Pro. Yeah, it's not a good name, okay? I do like TurboAnt. That's kind of cool. TurboAnt X7 Pro is one that maybe you should look at. Enokim has a cool scooter called the Light, too. I just like Enokim. They're designed in Israel. They just have really cool designs. We talked about Fluid Freeride Horizon. I think we ruled that out. It has a solid rear tire, has a tube in the front tire. Although on paper, it's a great option, $850. AnyHill is another one maybe to look at. 17 miles of real world range. Real world. If you are from a country that doesn't have R's and L's or gets them backwards, like maybe Japan or Thailand, that would be tough to say. Real world. I'm having trouble with that. The Fluid Freeride Horizon would be a good option, but the AnyHill UM2. So if I were you and I were expanding from just the Emove Cruiser, I would look at the AnyHill UM2 and the TurboAnt X7 Pro because they have swappable batteries. Way cheaper. The AnyHill is $900. Like I said, $500 for the TurboAnt.
So the Turbo is $500. How much is the battery?
That's a good question. And batteries are a major expense.
They are.
The Mosquito is $900. The TurboAnt is $500. The Enokim is $1,000. Those are always pricey. You pay for the high level design. Fluid Freeride Horizon is $850. I rented these lips. I'm still getting used to them.
Yeah.
The AnyHill UM2 is $899.
They look good though.
Thank you. They work okay for certain things, less for other things. The Emove Touring is another one you may want to consider. It weighs 20 pounds less than the Emove Cruiser. It only gets about 20 miles of real world range. It does not have a swappable battery. It only has 8-inch tires.
No.
And it's almost half the price.
I would either go with a swappable battery model or the Emove Cruiser.
Okay, so we're down to TurboAnt X7 Pro.
I don't remember looking at that.
AnyHill UM2. We'll look at it here shortly.
Let's see.
And the Emove Cruiser, which you're strongly leaning towards. So let's go over a couple things on the Emove Cruiser. It weighs 60 pounds. You okay with that?
That is a little heavy.
It is getting to the heavier side.
It is heavy.
It has a range of 60 miles. I know you don't have a problem with that.
That's
it
great.
does not have a swappable battery. It's $1,400. You're okay with that?
Yeah. I mean, you're going to get what you pay for.
To me, $1,400, $1,500,
not that
$1,600 is right in the range of
doable.
Definitely high quality scooters.
Yeah.
Above that, they have what we call Beast, the off-road stuff like the Wolf Warrior, and there's a Dualtron. There's a lot of those. But I think $1,500 is a sweet spot for good quality scooters. And the Emove Cruiser certainly is reliable, which is a big, big deal. But it has a key. It has a keyed ignition, which I'll tell you my reasons for not liking a key. It's one more thing to get lost.
Yes.
It's extra gear hanging off your handlebars. It's extra real estate. It has a low-mounted headlight, so you're going to want a headlight to put on the handlebars.
Yeah.
For sure. Easily done. USB, charged. They're not expensive.
Not expensive, and they're powerful.
They're powerful. They're high quality.
Probably
they're good.
brighter than the ones that come with it.
They're good. You can buy
Yeah.
really, really great handlebar mounted. Just use one off of an e-bike. That's what I do. I just take it off of my e-bike and put it on the scooter if I'm riding at night. But that key takes up real estate. Imagine you get to where you're going and that key got bent because of the way you forgot to take it out, you left it in there, or it's on my other keychain, or this or that. Those things are probably not going to happen, but they could possibly happen. Also, you got it on a keychain, you're cruising, and it's waggling around in the wind. Suffice it to say, Dagwood Streets, host of the Electric Scooter Podcast, speaking about himself in the third person, which is kind of weird, does not like keys. I don't like keys, man.
Can you retrofit it?
I was wondering that if you could call the nice people at Voro Motors, you could talk to Trina, you could talk to Melvin. There's a number of people there. They're all really cool. And if you buy from Voro Motors, by the way, I don't get anything from them, but if you pull up the website for Voro Motors in Los Angeles, a little chat box pops up and says, "Hey, what do you need?" And you say, "Oh, I got a flat tire. Do you got any in stock? Oh, let me check, blah, blah, blah." No other scooter company does that. Scooter distributor does that. It's
great,
immediate.
Great support.
Great support. So you could also pick up a phone. Every time I've called them, they actually pick up. I think there is a, "Hey, wait a second, is there something we can take care of," or whatever, but I get to talk to a human being every time.
That's uncommon nowadays.
And it's refreshing and
Yeah,
it's nice.
it's
And
really nice.
You can, if you're in LA, you can go to their store and talk to them and that kind of thing. So I like Fluid Freeride and I like Voro Motors. I'm a really big proponent because I have bought things from them, not as the host of the Electric Scooter Podcast. They didn't know who I was when I was purchasing things, and I got treated like gold. In one case, they even sent me a brand new scooter because it was easier than sending mine back and repairing it and then back and forth or whatever. They just sent me a brand new scooter. I'm not saying that's going to happen to anybody. I hope they're not angry with me for letting that out, but I'm saying that they're good. So you could talk to them, and rather than retrofit, you can just say, "Can you lose the key?" Matter of fact, I'd like to know if you have that experience because it's something I've been wondering. I've been meaning to call them just to ask them. On the Emove Cruiser, can you just
get rid of the key?
Just not have a key on it because you don't want it. Colors, fantastic. It comes in red, orange, purple, white, and they have a new color that's light blue, which before I would have got the orange, but now I get the light blue. It looks cool. There's no getting around it. It's just a nice color on a scooter, and I would certainly opt for the light blue.
Sweet.
So keys, it seems like you're kind of like me. You're not for the
Not
keys.
a fan.
Yeah, some people actually like them, and when they review scooters, they say as a bonus, it has a key, so you can leave it in the parking lot and go into the store, and when you come back, it'll still be there because it has a key. No. That's
nice try.
Yeah, that's. If people are lifting up motorcycles and throwing them in the back of the trucks,
You're not from Las Vegas.
yeah, or Hawaii,
or LA.
yeah,
Yeah.
or even Taiwan, like
Yeah.
they do with bicycles and scooters. They'll lift
Yeah,
them up and throw them in the back of a truck.
Keys are not going to keep it from getting stolen.
There he goes, folks. Ed, the pilot. He's what, when I was a kid, we would call a man's man. Does a little bit of everything. Fascinating guy. Well-spoken. We're going to bring him back. He's also a beekeeper, and there's a lot of crazy stories surrounding that. I'm going to bring him back, and we're going to try to figure out some way to send bees down the rabbit hole. Until next Wednesday at 8 o'clock in the morning, I'm your host that eats the most roast sometimes between toast. Keep the shiny side up and the dirty side down. Aloha!